My husband and I just drove across Canada to beautiful British Columbia. And before I left, I jumped into our free Facebook group, the Love Your Guts IBS support group, and I polled our community and asked them if their gut was stopping them from traveling. And what was absolutely mind blowing was that 73% of our community voted that yes, in fact, their gut was stopping them from traveling. And as we got chatting and we did more polls, what we came to learn is that there were two top things that were really impacting travel. The first one was unpredictable poops. And the second one was food and just navigating through eating while traveling and sort of preventing those flares. But when we strip both of these things back, it really connects to like one core thing, one core fear, and that is trying to avoid flares while traveling. So in this video, I'm going to be walking you through all of the things that I packed on our road trip across Canada. And I'm going to share some of the weird things that you would never guess I packed in our car and in our suitcase that you may want to consider not only traveling with, but having in your home to protect your gut. All right, let's jump in. I'm Alyssa Lebrack, nutritionist and gut expert, and I help people who are suffering with IBS, gas, bloat, diarrhea, constipation, or abdominal pain be able to feel normal again without restrictive diets. And today we're going to be talking all about travel. Listen, we had the best trip ever. We drove. This was such a huge road trip for us. So for a little bit of geography, we actually live in Ontario, Canada, and we drove all the way over to beautiful British Columbia, which is 4 provinces over from us. And we had such a wonderful time. Our drive there was 4 days straight. We did about 13 to 14 hour driving days. And then of course we were there for a couple of weeks and then we drove home. And I want to share that with you because we're going to be talking about travel today, but I also want to acknowledge that if you're new to fixing your gut or you're still in the throes of your digestive symptoms, there's a good chance that you're probably not going to choose to road trip across the country. And having said that, it really had me thinking about you so much while I was on my trip, because a lot of the fears that I hear come up for people just in general day-to-day life, but especially in cases of travel, I really started to see that a lot of them had either solutions, and when the solutions were put in place and there was still fear coming up, then there was also an opportunity for deeper mindset work to happen as well. And so today, the goal of this video is really to equip you with really tangible tools that are going to course correct the symptoms that may interrupt travel, so that all you have to do at that point is to work through the mindset and fear that's coming up from sort of old experiences. And this is something that I always explain to my clients, is that we want to have you having new experiences that gives your brain new data to say, hey, it's actually safe for me to go do this thing. And this is why it's really important that as you fix your gut, you're still actively putting yourself out there into having these experiences so that you're not operating off of old stories and old data. Right? Maybe once years ago, you had an accident and didn't make it to the toilet, or maybe that's never even happened to you and it's just the story in your mind. Or maybe once years ago, you went on a trip or didn't even go on a trip, but you had foods and your stomach flared up. You know, you may have old data and that may not be the case for you today, especially if you're equipped with really great tools. So let's make sure we're really challenging some of those fears and stories that are coming up around travel, especially, so that you can be free to have these experiences sooner than you expected. So first up, we're going to talk about unpredictable poops. This was the number one thing that our community shared was holding them back from traveling, whether you're on the diarrhea or constipation end of the spectrum, or maybe you're someone who is like me and used to suffer with fluctuating diarrhea and constipation. Unpredictable poops are really anxiety inducing. A big reason that I hear people stressing over their unpredictable poops is fear of not being able to get to a bathroom when the urge comes. Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing that I really learned on this trip. Remember, we drove through 4 different provinces, and there were many stretches of highway where we would drive 200, 300, 400 kilometers with nothing. I mean, nothing. There was no gas stations. There was no homes. There was no people. We were just driving through, highway that just cuts across the country through the forest in the middle of nowhere. And I share this with you because if you've ever been confronted with this concern or fear of not being able to get to a bathroom, this may not have been the trip for you to start. But what it made me really realize is that this was an extreme kind of situation, right? Very rarely are we in a situation where there isn't actually a bathroom. Most people are going to be traveling by plane or again, car even, but they're driving through cities and towns. It's not very often, unless you're going to drive, let's say, across a country, that you may be confronted with literally no bathrooms. And so this is what made me really go, isn't that interesting? I hear so often from our community that they're worried there isn't going to be a bathroom. But is that really true? Because if you think about it, let's say you decide to, I don't know, fly somewhere, right? So in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom at home, right? You go to the toilet at home, and then you drive to the airport. And most people live either really close to the airport or within a couple of hours. But even if you're driving to an airport, personally, our biggest airport, it's an hour away from me. There's multiple bathrooms, even just off of the highways, and restaurants that you can stop at to be able to use those bathrooms. But let's say there wasn't, you could get to the airport, there's still bathrooms there. There's even bathrooms on the airplane. And so I really want you to confront this fear. If this is something that you resonate with, if you're the type of person that is telling yourself, I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to find a bathroom, then I want you to really ask yourself, is that true? Is it that you're not going to find a bathroom? Or is it that you're not going to make it to a bathroom? Okay, so let's unpack that. Again, after being on like these back highways with literally nothing, I realized how frequently we drive past bathrooms in these small towns and cities, right? I mean, in Canada, there's a Tim Hortons on just about every corner. There is a McDonald's on every other corner. There are bathrooms everywhere, right? And so here's what I will say is that if you are in a position where you genuinely can't drive a couple of blocks and be able to make it to that bathroom, then I will just preface this by saying, one, make sure you download my perfect poop guide. I'll link it below because we have a full protocol in there for diarrhea and constipation. But again, if you're someone who has that urgency and literally can't drive a couple of blocks to be able to get to a bathroom, then you definitely need that perfect poop guide. And also, I'm going to tell you right now, it's just going to be the starting place because in my experience, when there is that aggressive diarrhea presenting, there's absolutely infections going on inside the gut. And so the only true way to stop that level of diarrhea from continuing on the rest of your life is to address those infections inside your gut. Okay. So even having said that, though, in all my years of practice, it's not very often that I run into someone who like literally can't leave their house, right? It's usually more a fear than it is a reality. Now, I'm not saying that's not the case for you. That very well may be the case for you. Again, in which case you got some work to do on your gut. But 95% of the time, it's usually more a fear that's keeping you isolated at home and stopping you from living your life. Right? So again, is it that you're worried that you're not going to find a bathroom or not make it to a bathroom? Or I'm just going to call you out right now and say, I have a feeling that maybe you don't want to have to use public bathrooms. There may even be a lot of shame going on around your gut issues and bowel movements. And the idea of other people knowing you're pooping, hearing you're pooping, smelling your poop while you're in a public bathroom is so deeply debilitating for you. And it's unnerving that you can't hold that bowel movement all day long while you're out and about or traveling, that it feels easier just to stay home. And so in this case, it's less to do about the unpredictable poop. It's less to do with bathroom access or accessibility. It has everything to do with body shame. And this is where I'm here. I'm here to break this stigma around our bodily functions. And I'm going to just say for women, especially, you too smell, you grow hair too, we sweat. All of these things are normal for us, just like they are for men. And so we as women need to start getting way more comfortable with our bodily functions. And this occurs for some men too, but I find especially for women, there's deep, deep embarrassment and shame around bodily functions. And often it's less to do with getting to the bathroom and more to do with they can't hold it in. And that's what bothers them. Okay. So in this case, I find when we start to encourage bowel movements, I'll have clients say to me, but I don't want to go to the bathroom. I don't want to have to go more. And I'm like, you need to go more. You should be pooping 2 to 3 times per day, every single day. Elbow to wrist in quantity, you need to eliminate every single day. And they're like, but I don't want to have to poop while I'm away from home. But listen, guys, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We can not have a healthy gut and keep all of those shit toxin and infections inside your body. That shit's got to go. And that means that we may have to poop while we're out and about. Okay. So I really wanted to hit that head on because perhaps it's not actually what you think it is in terms of bowel movements holding you back when it comes to travel. Okay, now I want to also talk to for those that are like, I'm here for it, I'm ready to travel, but not being able to poop or the discomfort of my unpredictable poops being off. Like maybe you're comfortable going to the bathroom and you're not even worried about finding a bathroom, but just feeling so sick in your stomach because you're constipated or have diarrhea while traveling is just not fun for you. And so you're like, the hell with it, I'm staying home. If this is you, then for sure, definitely download our perfect poop guide because what we're going to teach you inside that, again, we have full protocols in there that we give our clients inside our Love and Trust Your Guts program. And so whether you're on the diarrhea or constipation end of the spectrum, what we're going to do is help stabilize your bowel movements to make sure that you're eliminating properly. And if you're, again, on the looser end of the spectrum, we're going to help to firm things up and lighten some of that urgency, help form your poop so you're not getting like that oatmeal texture or even water textured poop. But also if you are on more the constipation end of the spectrum, we want to get you pooping more regularly. And I have to say, so often, when people are struggling with that really painful bloat that's just sitting like under that rib cage, for ladies, it just feels like it's making that bra feel really tight or those pants feel really tight. You got to like pop the button, or maybe you're like, screw jeans. You've moved all the way over to the stretchy yoga pants and never went back. Getting your bowels moving, this alone can really nip a lot of that bloating. And a lot of the times, just getting people pooping 2 to 3 times per day will drastically reduce that bloating that they're experiencing. So make sure you download the Perfect Poop Guide, and then we're going to talk about food next. So again, we were driving and driving and driving, and there were many stretches where there was no food to be found, no gas stations, etc. And sometimes when we would come upon food, it was literally just a gas station and we're looking at chips and chocolate and nuts and seeds, the beef jerky, your typical gas station type foods. And so having said that, again, we were kind of in a more extreme travel situation. And again, if you've got gut issues, this is probably not going to be your first trip of choice, right? To road trip across the country. So I want to bring us back to realistically the type of trip that you're going to take. What are the chances of there being restaurants around? What are the chances of there being grocery stores around? What are the chances of where you're staying being something that's in your control? Right? Again, Being in a more extreme travel environment really highlighted for me how much we do have accessible to us in our usual travel type environments. And so when I start hearing things like there's nothing for me to eat, or I can't eat anything because I can't eat anything off of, this menu or whatever, I really start to challenge that, because it really highlighted for me how much is accessible to us. So let's get into a solution oriented mindset for a moment. So if we think about it, typically when we're traveling, we're usually in small towns, cities, and there's got to be grocery stores, because where there's people, there is food. And oftentimes the easiest solution for this is booking Airbnbs where you have your own little kitchen and going to the grocery store and cooking something that works for you. So for someone who's feeling they really need to be in control of their food, one, this is an opportunity for healing. There's room for healing just in that relationship with food department, okay? And if that's where you're at, start with something that feels good for you. Having access to a kitchen, going to the grocery store, cooking some food for yourself. Okay. You can also prep food. So we actually prepped food for our trip on the way down there. We didn't really have the ability to do that on the way home. So it got a little dicey on the way home. But on the way out there, we were cooking egg cups, and I got lots of nuts and seeds. We created like a Caesar salad mix that I was able to just toss in bags. I also made like a chicken salad, so chicken breast with like mayo, and we put nuts and seeds and grapes and stuff in it, and we would scoop it out with veggie sticks, or we also had some gluten-free crackers we were scooping that with. And so we did like a whole spread of kind of finger type foods, but really protein focused foods. We even brought fruit and protein powder in a small little blender, right? So we really set ourselves up for success. And this also became easy tools for us to have along the way while we were traveling. Now, you may not be able to bring all these things on the plane if you're flying somewhere, but again, get into a solution-oriented mindset. Let's just talk about if you were to go to a restaurant, for example. Restaurants are used to accommodating. So I think the larger conversation is, are you comfortable asking for what you need? Right? Asking for what you need. And this is the thing about having a solution-oriented mindset, is that you will go and find a way. We were in some of the really cool rural small town areas in the middle of the mountains, my favorite spot in the middle of the mountains in BC. And even there, we were finding Freshie restaurants. So I don't know if they're in the States, but Freshie is like like a fresh bar. You get all kinds of really cool, healthy bootables and salads, and they have some wraps too. They've got juices, like green juices. Even there, we were finding really healthy solutions. And so, is it food accessibility? Just like bathrooms, is this food accessibility, or is this food fear? Right? I'm all about like, let's call a spade, but let's also get to the root of what's going on for you. And when we're addressing your gut issues, we have to talk about gut infections and toxins and stress and trauma. We also have to talk about the stories that we're telling ourselves and which ones are true and which may not be true. But when it comes to food fears, I find oftentimes our struggle with food is more to do with food fear and a disordered relationship with food as a result of being given really restrictive diets as a means to fix your gut. And all it's done is created strain on food and made food confusing for you. So I want to help you understand food. If you've been hanging out with me for a bit, you may have heard this before. And if you haven't, if you're new here, grab a pen and paper, because I'm going to give you a bit of a structure of what we teach our clients inside the Love and Trust Your Guts program here when it comes to food. Food is very simple. And the big reason why I don't believe in food sensitivity testing, I really think it's a waste of money, is because food sensitivities are, dare I say, not a real thing. You can have an experience of a food sensitivity, but when we look at food sensitivity testing, the results are often what we call false positives. And there's numerous reasons why you may get a false positive, but if you think about it this way, if your stomach is not working properly, just generally speaking, if your stomach is messed up, it's not digesting well, and you're eating foods and that body is struggling to break down those foods. It would make sense that those foods may pop up as sensitivities on a food sensitivity test, right? Because the food's not being broken down properly, and we end up seeing it as being a reactive food. So it's often not that the food itself is the issue. It's more so a sign of leaky gut is happening. So what's leaky gut? We got these tight junctions in our gut lining, and they start to tear apart. We get tiny holes in the gut lining. Food particles begin floating through into the blood system, and this starts to trigger your immune system. Right? So your immune system starts attacking these foods. You get this false positive. Your body's now saying and reporting, oh, we're sensitive to this food. And that's not actually the root of what's going on. The larger issue is leaky gut, which is also still a symptom, and an immune reaction, which is also still a symptom. But you can see here, food is actually not the problem, because if leaky gut weren't there and the infections and stress and trauma that cause leaky gut weren't there, then those foods wouldn't be reacting. So you can take out those foods all you want. They aren't going to fix the leaky gut. It's not going to fix your immune system. It's not going to fix the infections. So this is why we don't advocate for restrictive diets, because they don't fix anything. They don't fix anything. All they do is cause more damage by having you restrict your food into such a small variety of foods that you start to compromise your microbiome, but you also compromise your mental health, right? If you can't eat what your family is eating at the dinner table at Thanksgiving, there's a problem. There's a big problem. If you can't go out and eat at a restaurant with a friend or your spouse, there's a problem in the diet that you're following, not in your gut, right? So this is a structure that we give our clients to help with food, simplify food. First of all, in order to fix the gut is we got to focus on the infections, toxins, stress, and trauma. And the way that food supports that is by nourishing and fueling you. Just like when we go on a road trip, we put gas in our gas tank to fuel the car. Food is going to fuel your car, your body, while you're on this road trip to fixing your gut. And so food needs to be simple, but also nutrient dense, whole, and healthy, right? Whole foods. We're not talking about Big Macs. We're talking about like whole, healthy foods. If you are being given food lists that have whole, healthy foods on them, like garlic and onions, you know what diet I'm talking about. Low FODMAP diet. If you're following diets like that have you cutting out whole healthy foods, there's a problem. Do we really believe that the very food that is meant to keep us alive is causing the problem? Doesn't make sense. Okay, so food's really simple. First of all, you need to make sure every time you're eating that you're hitting 4 categories. 4 categories. Write this down. First category, you need protein. So protein is not peanut butter. That's not a protein. Nuts and seeds, not a protein. Okay, they go into the fat category. We just need to clear that up right now. So if you think you're eating peanut butter for breakfast and you think you're getting your protein, we're not getting enough protein. Yes, there's a little bit of protein in them, but not enough to count as a protein. Okay, so proteins are going to be your meat, like chicken and ground beef, and then your fish, right? Any kind of fish. It could be eggs. It could be certain protein powders. I don't advocate for all protein powders, but a really good quality protein powder. It could also be things like gelatin, collagen. These are sources of protein. And if you're plant-based, which is tricky if you're trying to fix your gut, because often those plant-based foods can be pissing off bad bacteria, but you can be looking at beans, okay? Or if you're, again, vegetarian, eggs, hemp hearts. These are some other options. Okay, so that's protein. That's the first category. Second category, fats. This is where all your nuts and seeds and oils and butter and bacon and things fall into, okay? Next category is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are going to be, this is where I'm just going to speak broadly for a moment, but like breads, pastas, crackers, potatoes of any kind, squashes would fall into. Okay, now I don't advocate for all these foods. We're going to talk about that in a second, but these are all your carbohydrates. And then the last category is vegetables and or fruits, okay? Preferably vegetables. You can have fruit, but we want to be getting more vegetables than fruit. So vegetables are obviously all your vegetables. So you can see this is actually very simple. And with the structure, it allows you to eat the foods you already know you like, right? There's no point in me coming in here and telling you, you must eat broccoli every single day. If you don't like broccoli, fine, eat cauliflower, eat asparagus. I really don't care. Eat a vegetable is the goal, right? Same thing with protein. If you don't like liver, cool, no problem. Do chicken, right? Like, do beef, do a steak, do whatever floats your boat. Pick a protein. So you get to customize it. Pick your protein, pick your fat, pick your carbohydrate, pick your vegetable. It's very simple. See, most people, when they get started in our Love and Trust Your Guts program, the problem with food, the big problem that's going on with food is they're under eating. They're not getting enough food in. And oftentimes these categories have gotten all wonky because of all the crazy diets that they're trying to follow. I have a new client that just started this week. I can't even remember the name of this diet, but she was eating pretty much strictly fruit and nuts and seeds. And she was really confused why her stomach was hurting so much. I said, well, you're overburdening your liver and gallbladder, and you're also feeding bad bacteria. You're feeding all the infections inside your gut, and you're not getting the essential nutrients and fuel to help fix your gut. So it makes perfect sense why you feel this way. So we get to our 4 essential categories. Okay, so this is the framework that we want you guys starting with. There's lots of other nuance and things that we help you add in there, but this is how you can meet your body where you're at. And so when you go out and you're traveling, can you find a protein? Can you find a fat? Can you find a carb? Can you find a vegetable or fruit? Hell yes, you can. Absolutely, you can. Again, unless you are in the middle of fucking nowhere and there's literally no food, unless you go out foraging in the woods, you should be able to find solutions, even if it's within a restaurant. Even if it's within a restaurant. Okay, so food can be simple, but we got to get into a solution-oriented mindset. And we also have to like unfuck our relationship with food. If you know what I'm talking about, right? We have to really seriously unfuck our relationship with food, because in the gut health space alone, there is low FODMAP, there's keto, there's GAPS, there's specific carbohydrate, there is elimination diet, there is endless amounts of diets. And this is why you're feeling so confused about food. But it's also why you've collected all these food rules that has made it impossible for you to go out and travel and enjoy. Okay, so we're focusing on fueling your body like gas in the gas tank. Okay, we're not putting diesel in your gas tank. Okay, so like McDonald's, we're not looking for perfection either, but like if you're asking yourself, is McDonald's like diesel in my gas engine? Yes. Yes is the answer, right? But if you're out and about and you're needing to make some food choices, so long as it falls into these categories and they're single ingredient foods, you're good. You're good. And this is available to us. All right, so next up, we're going to actually dive into some of the strange things that I'm quite confident you would never guess were packed in my suitcase. All right, I wouldn't normally share these extra items that I've packed in my suitcase. I would normally leave that to my like nerdy self. But I wanted to help bring you behind the scenes here and help you understand that fixing your gut is so much deeper. And I find that often people get stuck in this surface level of managing their symptoms and don't understand the depths of what may be contributing to their gut issues. As I always say to my clients, there's 3 core things that are going to be causing your gut issues. The first one is stealth infections. The second one is toxins. And the third one is stress and trauma. There's a lot of things that can fall under each of these categories, but when we start to look at these categories, there's a lot of opportunity for us to be supporting our bodies, and also opportunities for healing that you may not have even considered or were even aware of. So again, that's why I'm going to share these items, so that it may be expansive for you and help you start exploring other areas. A quick story time. 2 years ago, my husband and I got married, and on the day of our wedding, our apartment flooded. Needless to say, we never went home. We lost all of our belongings, but through that flood, we actually uncovered that there had been mold growing in our apartment all that time. And all of a sudden, a lot of the symptoms that I had been experiencing made perfect sense. From debilitating body pains to severe anxiety, but especially my digestive symptoms starting to creep back up. So fast forward to today, the last 2 years, I have been healing from mold and Lyme, and I'm finally getting to the other side of it. And when we decided to go on this trip, I knew that hotel rooms were going to be a hot spot for mold. So the thing that you have to understand about mold is that this is one of the big toxins that can be underlying in contributing to your gut issues. In fact, it's one of the biggest toxins that we have to address inside the Love and Trust Your Guts program. And so while you may think that you're just working with gut issues, there may actually be a mold exposure happening that you may like to consider. So one of the things that I brought with me was this EC3 air purifier candle. And I just want to say that this is not a solution. If you have mold growing in your home, you need to remove the mold. However, this is a great little travel hack, because I was able to bring this candle, which has been shown to reduce mold spores in the air. And this really helped me to manage the exposure and make sure that my body wasn't flaring by reducing that exposure. So, weird item number 1. So the second weird thing that I packed on our road trip is all about supporting stress. Now, as I always talk about, stress and trauma are a big root cause behind gut issues. And it's not just about working with emotional stress, but also taking into account physical stressors, and especially environmental physical stressors. And so one big category that's really important for us to be considering when we are trying to fix our gut is EMF exposure. And so the tool that I brought with me is my Somavedic. We actually got an inverter and plugged this baby right into our car. And this has been shown to harmonize EMFs and is able to actually reduce free radicals and really reduce that stress load on your cells. So this was a huge thing that we were really happy we brought with us, not only for being in the car, which is essentially like being inside a microwave from a EMF standpoint, being plugged in on our phones and using our phones for GPS, that continual signal firing was really, really important that we protected ourselves. So this was the tool we not only used in our car, but I actually would bring into the hotel rooms and plug in with us every single night. All right, so those are just some of the helpful tools and tips that I used along my trip across Canada to beautiful British Columbia. And I want to remind you that part of, again, fixing your gut in this healing journey is about getting out and feeling normal again. And I know how much that having these gut issues can really restrict your ability to feel normal and be able to take in everything that you used to. But perhaps getting out there and getting a taste for life again, getting that zest for life back, is a part of your healing journey. So please don't wait until your gut is fixed to start living your life. Living your life is part of what is going to help you start to heal emotionally, mentally, and physically. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you somewhere across the world traveling one day.